I found out my twin brother has been secretly dating my ex-fiancée for 3 years behind my back after she dumped me for needing space. And when I confronted them at their surprise engagement party, my parents told me to let it go because he deserves happiness. But turns out he also stole my inheritance. And now they're all shocked. I cut them off. Growing up, I 29M always thought my family was the embodiment of unconditional love and support. We weren't perfect, but I never doubted that they had my back when it counted. My twin brother Ethan and I were inseparable from birth. At least that's what all our childhood photos suggested. Our parents constantly reminded us how special our twin bond was, how we were each other's built-in best friends for life. The twin thing is interesting. We're fraternal, not identical. So we actually look pretty different. Ethan got our dad's height and build. Tall, naturally athletic, the kind of guy who never had to work out but always looked fit. I took after our mom's side shorter and had to work twice as hard at everything physical. But what I lacked in natural athletic ability, I made up for in academics and drive. I was always the responsible one, the planner, the one with solid grades and career ambitions. Our parents pretended they didn't play favorites, but the reality was different. Ethan could do no wrong in their eyes. When we were kids, if something got broken, they assumed it was my fault before even asking. When we both played sports, they'd go to all of Ethan's games but only catch mine if they had time. I got used to it though. I learned to be self-sufficient and not expect much from them in terms of emotional support. Despite this imbalance, I never resented Ethan. Growing up, we were close in our own way. He was charming and social, while I was more reserved. He struggled academically and I'd help him study. I admired his easy confidence and he seemed to appreciate my reliability. We had an understanding that worked for us. After college, I landed a solid job in finance. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well and offered stability. Ethan bounced between jobs, never quite finding his footing. But our parents always praised his free spirit and diverse experiences. Meanwhile, they consistently undermined my career choices, suggesting I was playing it too safe or lacking ambition. I brushed it off. I was building something for myself, and their approval had stopped mattering to me years ago. Then I met Olivia. She was brilliant, ambitious, funny, and somehow she chose me. We connected instantly over our shared love of obscure documentaries and hiking. After dating for 2 years, I proposed and she said yes, planning our future together. We talked about everything, where we'd live, our career goals, even how many kids we wanted. Ethan and Olivia got along well too, which made family gatherings easy and enjoyable. I thought I had it all figured out. I was wrong. 6 months before our wedding, Olivia became distant. She started canceling date nights, taking longer to respond to texts, and seemed distracted whenever we were together. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd insist she was just stressed about work. I believed her because I trusted her completely. Then one night, she came over and returned my ring. She told me she needed space, that she felt we were moving too fast, and that something was missing in our relationship. I was bullsighted. Through tears, I asked what had changed, what I had done wrong. She insisted it wasn't me, that she just needed time to figure things out. I respected her decision, as painful as it was. I didn't beg or plead. I just asked her if there was someone else. She looked me straight in the eyes and said no. The breakup devastated me. I threw myself into work, avoided family gatherings, and barely left my apartment except to go to the gym. My friends tried to get me out, but I wasn't ready. Ethan called occasionally to check in, but our conversations were brief. He said he was busy with a new job opportunity that was taking up all his time. I didn't question it. We were adults with our own lives now. Over the next year, I slowly rebuilt myself. I got promoted at work, started traveling more, and eventually began dating again, though nothing serious. Whenever family asked about my love life, I kept my answers vague. My parents occasionally mentioned that Ethan was seeing someone special, but he was keeping it private for now. I was happy for him, but too consumed with my own life to give it much thought. 3 years after my breakup with Olivia, my parents called to invite me to a surprise engagement party they were throwing. They wouldn't tell me who it was for, insisting it would ruin the surprise. I assumed it was for a cousin or family friend. I almost didn't go. I had a work trip planned that weekend. But my mother was unusually insistent, saying it was extremely important that I be there. So I rescheduled my trip and flew home for the weekend. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was already filled with family, friends, and faces I didn't recognize. I grabbed a drink and made small talk with relatives, still clueless about whose engagement we were celebrating. Then my father clinked his glass and called for everyone's attention. He was beaming with pride as he announced that we were gathered to celebrate Ethan and Higgins. My brother stepped forward, grinning widely, and then emerging from the crowd to stand beside him was Olivia, my Olivia. She was smiling, her hand intertwined with my twin brother's, a sparkling engagement ring, noticeably larger than the one I had given her. The room spun. I must have made a noise because several people turned to look at me. Olivia's smile faltered for just a second when our eyes met, but Ethan's grin never wavered. He looked directly at me as he pulled her closer and kissed her temple. My parents stood beside them, practically glowing with happiness. I don't remember moving, but suddenly I was standing in front of them. My voice was eerily calm when I asked how long they had been together. Ethan maintained his smile and said, "About 3 years now." 3 years. Which meant they got together almost immediately after, or possibly even before, Olivia ended things with me. My mother must have sensed my shock because she quickly said, "Isn't it wonderful when two people find each other? Sometimes it's just meant to be." I looked at her in disbelief. "You knew. All of you knew." I turned to my father, who was suddenly very interested in his drink. "You knew she was my ex," Ethan corrected, his tone light, but his eyes challenging. "And yes, everyone knew. We didn't tell you because we figured you'd overreact." Clearly we were right. Olivia finally spoke, her voice soft. "We didn't plan this. It just happened. We connected in a way that was unexpected. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." I laughed then, a hollow sound that silenced the room. "You're sorry about how I found out, but not about secretly dating my brother behind my back. Not about lying to my face when you broke off our engagement." My father stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder that I immediately shrugged off. "Son, what's done is done. They're happy together. Isn't that what matters? It's time to let this go. Let it go." As if they were talking about a borrowed shirt that wasn't returned. Not the complete betrayal by the people I trusted most in the world. I looked around the room at the faces staring at me, some embarrassed, some curious, some completely oblivious to the drama unfolding. And in that moment, I felt utterly alone. I turned back to Ethan and Olivia. "Congratulations. You deserve each other." Then I walked out, ignoring my mother's calls to come back and be reasonable. I drove straight to a hotel, checked in, and turned off my phone. For hours I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what had happened. The betrayal wasn't just that they were together, though that was excruciating enough. It was that everyone had known. For 3 years, my entire family had kept this secret from me, had watched me grieve my relationship and rebuild my life, all while knowing the truth. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find dozens of missed calls and messages. Most were from my parents, insisting I was overreacting and needed to think of the family. A few were from extended relatives who claimed they had no idea about the history and were sorry for my pain. None were from Ethan or Olivia. I called my mother back. She immediately launched into how I had ruined Ethan's special night with my selfishness. When I finally got a word in, I asked her a simple question. If the situation were reversed, if I had dated Ethan's Ashien behind his back, would you be telling him to let it go? Her silence was telling. After a moment, she said, "That's different. Ethan has always struggled to find his way. He deserves this happiness," and there it was. The naked truth of where I stood in my family's hierarchy of needs. I told her I needed time and space, and that I wouldn't be coming to any family events for a while. She called me childish and said I needed to grow up. I hung up and booked the next flight home. Over the following weeks, I tried to process my feelings. I wasn't still in love with Olivia. Time had healed that wound. But the deliberate deception by my own twin and my entire family had opened a new, deeper one. I decided the healthiest thing for me was distance. So I limited contact with my family to brief, polite responses to direct messages. 6 months after the engagement party, I received an unexpected call from my grandfather's attorney. My grandfather had passed away 3 years earlier, leaving Ethan and me equal portions of his estate and a trust that was to be released when we turned 30 or upon getting married, whichever came first. I had been close to my grandfather, who had always treated Ethan and me equally. He was the one family member who seemed to see and value us both for who we were. The attorney informed me that there had been a modification to the trust a few months before my grandfather's death. According to the paperwork, I had requested my portion be given to Ethan instead, with a small stipend set aside for me. The attorney was calling because something about it struck him as unusual, and he wanted to verify this had been my wish. I was stunned. I had never requested any such modification. In fact, I hadn't even known the specific terms of the inheritance until that moment. I told the attorney this and asked to see the documentation. He emailed it to me immediately. The request letter had my signature on it, but I had never seen it before. It was dated during a period when I was overseas for work training, which meant I couldn't have physically signed it. I began to suspect forgery. But who would have done this? I hired a forensic handwriting analyst who confirmed the signature was fake. A decent forgery, but definitely not my handwriting. I also hired a private investigator to look into who might have submitted this fraudulent document. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. The PI found evidence that Ethan had forged my signature and submitted the fake request. Email exchanges between Ethan and the family's financial advisor, recovered through legal means, revealed that Ethan had been in financial trouble. He had accumulated massive gambling debts and was desperate for money. Our grandfather's inheritance was substantial enough to clear his debts and still leave him with a comfortable sum. The most disturbing part was that my parents appeared to be aware of the scheme. In one email chain, my mother had asked the advisor if there was any chance this could come back on Ethan, which the advisor had reassured her that as long as I remained unaware of the specifics of the inheritance, everything should be fine. Armed with this evidence, I confronted my family. I invited my parents and Ethan, but not Olivia, to meet me at a neutral location, a private room at a local restaurant. They probably thought it was an olive branch, a sign I was finally getting over everything and ready to reconcile. When they arrived, they were all smiles and casual conversation, as if the past 6 months of minimal contact had been my petty overreaction rather than a reasonable response to their betrayal. I let them talk for a few minutes about how wedding plans were coming along, how they'd saved me a spot in the wedding party, how it was time to move forward as a family. Then I placed a folder on the table and slid it toward them. Before we move forward with anything, I think we need to discuss this. Inside was the evidence of Ethan's fraud, the forged letter, the handwriting analysis, and the damning email exchanges. Their faces fell as they reviewed the contents. My father tried to close the folder, but I placed my hand on it firmly. "You stole from me," I said to Ethan. "You forged my signature and took what Grandpa intended for me. I turned to my parents and you knew about it. You helped him cover it up." My mother recovered first. "It wasn't stealing. Ethan needed help, and you've always been fine financially. He was going to pay you back eventually." "Was he?" I asked, because that's not what these emails suggest. I pointed to a specific exchange where Ethan had told the advisor that I would never need to know about the arrangement. Ethan shrugged, his expression not remotely apologetic. "You're making a big deal out of nothing, so I borrowed your share." "So what? You make good money." "I needed it more than you did." My father nodded in agreement. "Your brother was in trouble. What were we supposed to do? Let him suffer when there was a solution available?" "You were supposed to be honest with me," I replied. "You were supposed to ask me if I wanted to help him, not make that decision for me by committing fraud." "Oh, please," my mother scoffed, as if you would have agreed. "You've always been so rigid, so selfish with your money." I stared at her, truly seeing her for perhaps the first time. When have I ever been selfish with my money? I've paid for family vacations, helped with your medical bills when Dad lost his job, loaned Ethan money countless times that he never repaid. When have I ever refused to help when directly asked? She had no answer for that. Instead, she deflected. "This is all happening because you can't stand to see your brother happy with Olivia. You're using this inheritance thing as an excuse to punish him for falling in love." I laughed then, genuinely amused by her mental gymnastics. "The fraud happened 3 years ago, long before I knew they were together. This has nothing to do with Olivia and everything to do with the fact that my own family conspired to steal from me." My father tried a different approach. "What exactly do you want from us?" "The money's gone. Ethan can't pay it back. He's still getting his business off the ground. Do you want to tear the family apart over this?" "The family is already torn apart," I said quietly. "You did that, not me." I pulled out another document from my bag. A legal letter my attorney had prepared. This outlines the terms of repayment. Ethan has two. He can either repay the full amount over 5 years with interest, or I will press charges for fraud. The evidence is more than sufficient for a criminal case. They stared at me in shock. Ethan was the first to recover, his shock morphing into anger. "You would send your own twin to jail over money? What kind of brother are you?" "The kind who expected basic decency and honesty from his family and got neither," I replied evenly. "What kind of brother forges his twin's signature to steal his inheritance? What kind of parents help cover it up? You've all shown me exactly what kind of family you are." My mother began to cry, large theatrical sobs that had always worked to manipulate me in the past. How can you do this to us after everything we've done for you? I looked at her tear-streaked face and felt nothing. What exactly have you done for me that wasn't also for yourselves or for Ethan? Name one thing where I was the priority. Her silence spoke volumes. You have 1 week to decide. Either Ethan signs the repayment agreement or I file a police report and press charges. They'll also be contacting the State Bar Association regarding the financial advisor's involvement in the fraud. I paused at the door. And don't worry, I won't be attending the wedding. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful family celebration without me. The week passed, and on the last day, I received the signed agreement from my father. There was no note, no apology, just the signed document. I had my attorney verify everything was in order, then set up the payment schedule. I didn't respond to any of their attempts at communication beyond what was necessary for the repayment process. Meanwhile, I focused on rebuilding my life yet again. I accepted a promotion at work that required relocation, a welcome fresh start in a new city. I made new friends, picked up new hobbies, and even started dating someone who understood my complicated family situation and respected my boundaries. About a month before Ethan and Olivia's wedding, I received a formal invitation in the mail. I was surprised. After everything, I assumed they wouldn't want me there. Inside was a handwritten note from Olivia. I know things are complicated, but it would mean a lot to have you there. We were friends once before everything. Maybe we could be family now. I didn't respond. Then came the calls and texts. First from my mother, insisting that I needed to put the past behind me and attend for the sake of family unity. Then from extended relatives who had been fed who knows what version of events. Even Ethan called, though his apology consisted mainly of how my absence would upset Mom and create drama rather than any real acknowledgement of his actions. I didn't attend the wedding. Instead, I took a solo trip to a place I'd always wanted to visit. I posted photos of my adventure on social media, making it clear to everyone that my absence from the wedding was a deliberate choice, not an oversight. The fallout was immediate. My parents left lengthy, guilt-laden voicemails. Ethan sent angry texts. Some relatives reached out to tell me I was being petty and needed to forgive. Others, surprisingly, sent private messages of support, saying they had always seen how I was treated differently and respected my decision to set boundaries. What none of them seemed to understand was that this wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about self-preservation. I had spent my entire life being gaslit by my family, told that my feelings weren't valid, that my perspective was wrong, that I should set aside my needs. For Ethan's, the inheritance fraud was just the final confirmation of what I had always suspected but never fully accepted. In their eyes, I was less deserving, less important, less loved. The monthly payments from Ethan started coming in as agreed, though I noticed they were often paid at the last possible moment. I had no direct contact with any of them beyond what was necessary for the repayment arrangement. My parents tried reaching out on birthdays and holidays, but their messages always contained some reference to how I was breaking their hearts or tearing the family apart, never acknowledging their role in the situation. About a year after the wedding, I unexpectedly ran into Olivia at a professional conference in my new city. She approached me during a coffee break, looking nervous but determined. "I've been wanting to talk to you," she said to explain. I considered walking away, but decided to hear her out. We found a quiet corner away from the crowd. She told me that she and Ethan had indeed connected while she and I were still engaged. Nothing physical had happened, she claimed, but they had developed feelings for each other. She insisted that she had ended things with me to sort out her confusion, not because she had already decided on Ethan. She said that they had started dating officially about 6 months after our breakup, not immediately, as I had assumed. I listened silently, not offering forgiveness or understanding, letting her speak. When she finished, she looked at me expectantly, as if waiting for some absolution. "Is that it?" I asked. She seemed taken aback. "What do you mean? Is that all you wanted to say?" "Because from where I'm standing, the timeline doesn't change anything. You developed feelings for my twin brother while we were engaged. Instead of being honest about why you were ending things, you fed me a line about needing space. Then you and Ethan hid your relationship for 3 years, letting everyone else in on the secret except me. And now you want what exactly? Forgiveness? Understanding? Permission?" She flushed. "I just thought you should know the truth." "The truth?" I repeated, 3 years too late. "Tell me, did you know about the inheritance? About what Ethan did?" Her hesitation told me everything. I found out after we were engaged, she admitted. He told me it was a misunderstanding, that you had verbally agreed to let him have your share, but then claimed you hadn't when you found out. I laughed bitterly. And you believe that even knowing me as well as you once did, you believed I would agree to give away my inheritance and then lie about it? She looked away. I trusted him. He's my husband, and I was going to be your husband. Once I reminded her which one of us has actually proven trustworthy. She had no response to that. After an awkward silence, she said, I should get back to the conference. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for how everything happened. As she walked away, I realized something important. I was no longer angry. I wasn't hurt or resentful, I just felt nothing for her, for Ethan, for any of them. They had become strangers to me, people with whom I shared history but no present or future connection. That night, I called the one family member I still trusted, my grandfather's sister, my great-aunt Helen. She had always been kind to me and had reached out several times since the rift, never to pressure me, but simply to check on my well-being. She was in her 80s now, but sharp as ever. I ran into Olivia today. I told her after our usual catch-up, and Helen sighed heavily. I wondered if that might happen with her working in the same field as you. How was it? Oddly freeing, I admitted. I realized I don't care anymore. Not about her, not about Ethan, not about any of it. That's healing, she said. Not the absence of pain, but the absence of the power it once had over you. We talked for a while longer, and then, hesitantly, she brought up something she'd been holding back. There's something you should know, she said. Your mother called me last week. Ethan's in trouble again. Gambling debts. From what I gathered, she was fishing to see if I might talk some sense into you about forgiving him and helping out. I wasn't surprised. What did you tell her? I told her that you were doing well, building a new life, and that if they wanted to be part of it, they needed to respect your boundaries and take responsibility for their actions. She paused. I also told her I'd be changing my will to exclude anyone who tried to pressure you into providing financial support to Ethan. I suspect that's why I haven't heard back from her. I laughed, genuinely appreciative of her fierce protectiveness. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, she replied firmly. Someone in this family needs to stand up for you, since they never have. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights and reflecting on how much had changed in the past few years. I had lost the family I thought I had, but in the process I had gained something more valuable: clarity, self-respect, and freedom from the toxic patterns that had defined my life for so long. The next morning, I received a text from my mother. Ethan's in trouble. He needs his brother. Please call me. I didn't respond. Instead, I blocked her number, and then Ethan's, and then my father's. I was done being the fallback plan, the safety net, the one expected to sacrifice without complaint. I was done with conditional love and selective loyalty. 2 years after cutting contact, I am thriving. I've been promoted again at work, bought my own home, and my relationship has grown into something solid and genuine. I've maintained contact with Aunt Helen and a few cousins who respect my boundaries. But the core family that raised me is no longer part of my life. Sometimes I wonder if my parents and Ethan ever truly understood why I walked away. Did they see it as an overreaction to a single incident? Or did they finally recognize the pattern of disrespect and favoritism that had defined our family dynamic? They'll probably never know. What I do know is family should be built on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine care, not obligation, man-up, or convenience. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who have shown you repeatedly that they don't value you. It's not about punishment or revenge. It's about recognizing your own worth and refusing to accept anything less than the respect and honesty you deserve. I don't regret cutting them off. The peace I found in their absence has confirmed what I suspected all along. Sometimes the family you're born into is the family you need, and that's okay. Sometimes the most important family member to protect is yourself.